Once upon a time, beside a bright silver teal sea, one tiny, wind-worn cottage waited for its story to begin. In that humble little home lived Bruno and Mara, two gentle hearts carrying one quiet sorrow. Their cottage was poor, but oh, how bravely it stood against the wind. Inside, every worn little bowl, every creaking chair, and every patched board had been saved, mended, and loved. Before sunrise, Bruno stepped into the cold morning, as faithful as the tide. Whatever the sea offered him, little or much, Bruno accepted it with a thankful heart. Mara worked with tired paws, trying so hard to keep their small world whole. But beneath all her careful work, one sorrow never slept, the empty cradle in her heart. Whenever Mara saw another family laughing together, her own heart ached all over again. Slowly, her sadness began to whisper in the dangerous voice of wanting. She wondered if finer things, softer rooms, and a grander life might fill the empty place inside. One chilly morning, Bruno waited by the quiet sea while the gulls circled high above him. Then, suddenly, his fishing line snapped tight, as if the deep sea itself had grabbed hold. Up from the water rose a shining fish, bright as a secret miracle beneath the morning light. Before Bruno could even breathe, the enchanted fish pleaded, "Kind fisher bear, please let me go." Bruno stared in wonder. Then his kind heart spoke first, and he promised he would never harm such a magical creature. With the gentlest paws, Bruno lowered the marvelous fish back into the sea. The fish vanished beneath the waves, leaving only a silver shimmer behind. So Bruno went home empty-pawed, but peaceful in his soul. Mara saw the empty basket at once, and her disappointed eyes asked what Bruno had brought home. Bruno told her about the great talking fish and how it had begged for mercy from the sea. But Mara heard the word magic and wondered what such magic could have given them. Poor Bruno had saved a wonder and asked for nothing at all in return. Mara's disappointment rang through the cottage. Such a rare chance, she said. And Bruno had come home with empty paws. At last, she sent him back to the shore, telling him to ask the fish for a better home. Bruno did not want to ask, but love made his feet turn back toward the sea. At the water's edge, Bruno called the old rhyme into the wind, shy and full of shame. The sea stirred softly, and the shining fish rose again, asking, "What does Mara want now?" With lowered eyes, Bruno told the fish that Mara wished their poor cottage could become a better home. The fish flicked its glowing tail and told Bruno, "Go home, Bruno. Mara already has her wish." Bruno hurried back, with hope in one breath and worry in the next. Where the old cottage had leaned, a pretty little house now smiled at the sea. For a little while, Mara's eyes shone with real delight as she touched every lovely new thing. And because Mara smiled, Bruno's whole heart smiled too. But contentment came like a guest and left far too soon. Soon Mara's dreams wandered beyond the little house, into larger rooms and finer halls. So she sent Bruno back again, and the restless sea waited. This time, the water looked darker, as though it already knew what was coming. Again, Bruno called the old rhyme, and the cold wind carried his shame across the waves. When the fish rose, Bruno asked for a grand manor, though the wish was not truly his. The fish granted it, but even the waves seemed to shiver around the wish. Bruno returned to find a splendid manor standing proudly above the shore. Mara admired its beauty, as if grandeur had finally come to find her. Yet even the grand manor soon became too small for her growing longing. Back Bruno went, while the waves lifted higher and struck the rocks harder. His little rhyme nearly disappeared inside the rising wind. When the fish appeared again, Bruno asked, sadly and softly, for a palace. The fish granted the palace, but the sea gave no joyful answer. Bruno came home to tall towers, shining banners, and marble steps where the cottage once stood. Mara moved through the palace splendor like someone learning to be royal. But splendor became only another step toward something higher. Bruno returned beneath clouds that pressed lower and lower over the sea. Again he called the old rhyme, and this time, shame trembled in every word. The fish rose, and Bruno asked that Mara be made a lady of great rank. The fish granted even that, with only a flicker of silver light. Bruno found Mara dressed in honor, but still not dressed in peace. Before long, Mara's eyes climbed higher than rank itself, toward a queen's crown. The sea was deep and storm-tinted when Bruno came back to it. Still, Bruno called the rhyme the waves now knew too well. With his head bowed low, Bruno asked that Mara be made queen. The fish granted the crown, and the dark teal sea rolled on without a smile. Mara became queen, wrapped in velvet, gold, and candle fire. Servants bowed low before her, but bowing could never become love. Golden dishes filled the tables, yet Mara's heart stayed hungry. In those endless palace halls, her footsteps sounded lonelier than ever. Bruno saw the truth. Each new gift had taken more peace from Mara's face. One moonlit night, he found her, sitting beside a great palace window, staring out to sea. Bruno softly whispered, "You should sleep," as gently as if he were touching a bruise. At last, Mara asked the question no throne could answer. Why does nothing ever feel like enough? Bruno answered with tender wisdom. A hungry heart can mistake many things for what it truly needs. Mara heard him, but the truth had not yet reached the deepest room of her heart. By morning, wanting had dressed itself in a new excuse. Even a queen must answer to others, Mara thought. Then she reached higher still, saying, "I should be Empress." Bruno asked, "Must it always be more?" But Mara's answer was only a command. "Go, Bruno." So Bruno returned to a sea rough, with warning. Still, love pulled the old rhyme from his trembling mouth. The fish rose, and Bruno asked that Mara be made Empress. The fish granted the wish, and the troubled sea heaved beneath it. Bruno returned to halls so vast they seemed to hold their own sky. Yet even the Empress throne could not quiet Mara's restless heart. Her wanting had grown so large, it became the voice by which she judged the whole world. Then even the word Empress sounded small upon her tongue. Mara's desire rose beyond the earth itself. She wanted the sun and moon to obey her command. Bruno went pale, for this wish had crossed the last safe shore. But pride and longing were knotted too tightly in Mara's heart, and she ordered Bruno, "Tell the fish." Bruno walked beneath a sky so dark it felt almost like night. At the wild, deep, teal-black water's edge, he called the old rhyme one final time. Slowly, the enchanted fish rose from the storm-dark sea. Its wise eyes held a sorrow deeper than thunder as it asked, "What does Mara want now?" Bruno spoke the final wish as if each word wounded him. Mara wants power over the sun and moon. For a long, terrible moment, the fish said nothing. Then it told Bruno only this: "Go home, Bruno." Bruno turned back through the wind, carrying fear instead of hope. On the hill above the shore, Bruno stopped dead still. The palace was gone, vanished like a dream swallowed by morning. In its place stood the old cottage again, small, weather-beaten, and true. And there, outside the cottage, stood Mara. Bruno came closer, fearing anger, but found a trembling smile. Mara's voice shook with wonder as she told Bruno, "Everything has changed." Bruno saw all that had vanished, but Mara gently told him, "Not all, not all." Then Mara reached gently for Bruno's paw. She placed his paw over the secret the sea had not taken. At last, understanding dawned across Bruno's whole face. Mara gave the miracle its name. We are going to have a child. Outside the poor little cottage, Bruno and Mara held each other and wept with happiness. That evening, they sat by the sea, wishing for nothing more. The roof still leaked, the chairs still creaked, yet at last, home felt full. Mara finally understood. Houses, rank, power, and splendor had never healed her aching heart. Bruno asked softly, "And now?" as he held her paw as if it were treasure. Mara smiled, and this time her smile needed no palace. The heart is filled by love, not by having more. So the months passed gently, like warm waves over sand. Bruno mended the cottage with care, laughter, and new hope. Then he carved a little cradle from smooth pine, shaping every curve with love. Mara stitched tiny clothes and soft blankets, and every thread seemed to hold a prayer. When spring returned, the sea shone silver blue for their child's first dawn. Bruno and Mara held their newborn cub as though they held the whole wide world. The old cottage glowed warmer than any palace ever had. And from that day on, Bruno, Mara, and their little cub lived by the sea in love, gratitude, and peace.